was a modest affair, but undeniably beautiful. Emily stood there in a white dress she had spent 3 months choosing, looking at Jacob, her husband now, with such tenderness that her friends whispered among themselves, "Now that is true love." Jacob was the picture of attentiveness. He adjusted her veil, offered his hand as she stepped out of the car, whispered compliments only she could hear. After the ceremony, he carried her over the threshold of her, now their, apartment, his arms strong and sure. "Welcome home, wife," he had said, and in that moment Emily believed with every fiber of her being that it would always be this way. The first few months passed in a blissful haze. Jacob was still thoughtful, bringing home flowers every Friday, kissing the nape of her neck while she cooked dinner. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to shift. First, the Friday flowers stopped appearing. Then the spontaneous kisses, the ones without any reason, became a memory. Jacob started coming home from work, tossing his jacket onto the sofa like it was a basketball hoop, and collapsing in front of the TV with a heavy sigh. "Em, what's for dinner?" he'd call from the living room. The first time, she didn't think much of it. The second time, she smiled to herself. He must be tired. But the third time, a small thread of irritation pulled tight within her. "Jacob," she asked, walking to the doorway, "maybe you could cook something yourself. I just got home too, you know?" He looked at her as if she'd suggested he build a rocket ship in the backyard. "Em, seriously? I've been grinding all day. A man should be able to unwind in his own home, not stand over a stove. That's your department." Emily stayed quiet then. She'd been raised in a household where her father helped her mother. He did the dishes, ran to the grocery store, even cooked breakfast on Sundays. She'd assumed that was just how partnerships worked. But Jacob, she was beginning to see, viewed the world through a different, much more traditional lens. 6 months slid by. Emily worked as an accountant for a small firm. Jacob was a sales manager. Their salaries weren't wildly different. He made about $5,000 a year more than she did, yet he'd repeat it like a mantra. "I'm the provider for this family. You have to understand, the weight is on my shoulders." That weight meant he'd bring his paycheck home and place it in a shared envelope from which Emily would pay the utilities, buy groceries, pick up household supplies. Jacob considered his mission accomplished. At home, he did nothing. Absolutely nothing. Dirty socks formed little piles by the bed, his breakfast plate sat on the table until evening, and he'd only take the trash out after 3 separate reminders. "Jacob, could you at least help me vacuum?" one Saturday morning. "Em, don't start. I've been working all week. The weekend is sacred. Men don't bother with that kind of stuff." What men? Thoughtful husbands help their wives. My dad never did women's work, and their family was just fine. Emily remembered Jacob's mother, a quiet, perpetually weary woman named Helen, who hadn't even smiled at their wedding. Back then, Emily thought her future mother-in-law was just stern. Now she was starting to understand the deep, resigned exhaustion etched on Helen's face. Jacob was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone. Emily vacuumed the apartment herself, her jaw clenched so tight it ached. A slow-burning anger was building a nest in her chest, but she swallowed it down. "It'll get better," she told herself, like a daily prayer. It didn't get better. One evening, as Emily was folding yet another stack of his shirts she had washed, dried, and ironed, Jacob spoke up. "Em, listen, my mom's not doing so great. Her health is kind of failing." Emily turned. "Something serious?" Her blood pressure's up, her back is always hurting. You know, getting older. It's hard for her to manage alone. Maybe you could drive over and help her out, you know, with the cleaning and stuff." Emily blinked. "Me?" "Well, yeah, she's my mom. I'd feel weird asking a stranger. We're family." Emily wanted to protest that she worked a 5-day week, that she barely kept her own head above water with chores, that she was running on empty. But then she pictured Helen, an elderly woman, living alone. She probably did need help. Saying no felt rude, like she'd be damaging a bridge before she'd even finished crossing it. "Okay," she sighed, the word heavy. "I'll come by on Saturdays." Jacob nodded, not even a "thank you," and went back to his phone. That first Saturday, Emily arrived at her mother-in-law's with a bag of groceries. Helen opened the door and gave a curt nod. "Come in." The apartment wasn't filthy, but it was neglected. A fine layer of dust coated the shelves. The windows were streaked. The floors were dull. Wordlessly, Emily got out the cleaning supplies. Helen sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea and flipping through a magazine. "Haven't done the windows in ages," she remarked, not looking up. "Try not to leave streaks." Emily said nothing, fetched the step stool and got to work. 3 hours later, the place shone. Wiping sweat from her brow, Emily walked into the kitchen. "Helen, I'm all finished." Her mother-in-law made a slow tour of the rooms, her eyes scanning like a critic. "You missed a spot under the sofa, and that mirror in the hall. See those smudges?" Emily clenched her teeth. Not a word of thanks. Not a single, "I appreciate it." "I'll get it next time," she said, fighting to keep her voice level. "See that you do. Jacob mentioned you're a bit slack at home, too. You can put in more effort here." Emily felt something fragile inside her crack. Had Jacob been complaining about her to his mother? Seriously? She left in silence. At home, Jacob didn't even ask about her day. He was watching a game, crunching on chips. "You take the trash out?" he asked, eyes glued to the screen. Emily looked at him for a long, hard moment. Then, without a word, she picked up the overflowing bag and took it out. Saturdays became a ritual of quiet resentment. Every week, the drive to Helen's, the cleaning, the laundry, sometimes cooking. Her mother-in-law grew more demanding. The potatoes weren't peeled right. The floor was mopped poorly. She'd left dust on the radiator. And never, not once, did she say thank you. She accepted the help as her due, as if Emily were a paid housekeeper who'd tragically forgotten to invoice. Jacob didn't value her efforts either. The couch was still his throne, the TV his kingdom, and he left a trail of clutter in his wake. If Emily tried to voice her exhaustion, he'd brush her off. "You're blowing it out of proportion. This is just how it is for women." Emily could feel the weariness seeping into her bones, leaching the last bits of color from her life. She woke up thinking of work, came home to more work, cooking, cleaning, laundry. Saturday, mother-in-law duty. Time for herself, for friends, for simple stillness had vanished. She lost weight. Dark circles settled under her eyes like permanent shadows. Colleagues asked if she was okay. Emily would nod and force a smile. "I'm fine." But nothing was fine. Then came that Saturday. The usual routine: dusting, scrubbing, laundering. As she was finally packing up to leave, Helen's voice stopped her. "Wait, make me some tea. Bring it in here, to the living room." Emily froze. Helen was comfortably ensconced on the sofa, a pillow behind her, watching a talk show. "Helen, you can easily make tea yourself. I'm running late." "Late for what? It's Saturday. Just do it. I'm tired from all this sitting." Emily's hands curled into fists. The fatigue of the week, of the 3 hours of cleaning, of her bent back and chemical-reddened hands crashed down on her. And this woman couldn't boil water? But she went to the kitchen, filled the kettle, dropped a tea bag into a mug, and poured the boiling water. She placed it on a tray with a sugar bowl and some cookies and carried it in. Helen took the mug, sipped, and immediately frowned. "It's lukewarm. "What took you so long? I waited 10 minutes. Is it really that hard to make a quick cup of tea?" And that was it. The final thread of her patience, pulled taut for months, finally snapped. "Helen," Emily began, her voice low but trembling with a fury she could no longer contain, "do you have any idea how long I've been here today? 3.5 hours. I cleaned this entire apartment, mopped the floors, did your laundry, scrubbed your stove. I did this after a 40-hour work week, when what I want to do is absolutely nothing. And in all that time, you haven't offered one kind word, only criticism. And now you're upset because your tea isn't hot enough?" Helen's eyes went wide. "How dare you speak to me like that?" "I'm speaking the truth. I'm exhausted, tired of being your unpaid maid. You can't even muster a simple thank you." "The audacity!" Helen scrambled up from the sofa, the tea sloshing. "I'm calling Jacob. He'll teach you how to respect your husband's mother." "Go ahead. Tell him. Tell him how you exploit me, how you don't appreciate a single thing, how you treat me like the help." She turned and marched out, grabbed her purse, shoved her arms into her jacket. She could hear Helen already on the phone, voice shrill with outrage. "Jacob, your wife has lost her mind. Get over here now." Emily slammed the apartment door. On the landing, her hands shook. Her phone vibrated. "Jacob." She answered. "What the hell is going on? Mom's having a fit." "Jacob, I've had a... Couldn't you just be civil?" He cut her off. "She's an elderly woman. You have to show respect." "Respect?" Emily's voice shattered into a shout. "For 3 months, every single Saturday, I've come here and cleaned and scrubbed and washed, and not once, do you hear me? Not once has she thanked me. Only complaints. And now she demands I bring her tea and has the nerve to complain it cooled down." It's a small thing. Why are you making a mountain out of a molehill?" "A small thing? Everything is a small thing to you. I work just as hard as you. I earn nearly the same, but I carry this entire household alone. You don't lift a finger. And now I'm supposed to spend my only day off cleaning for your mother, who treats me like a servant?" "Emily, enough of the drama. She's my mother. You have a duty to help." "No, I don't. I'm done, Jacob. Done with your rudeness, done with her ingratitude." "Where do you think you're going?" Helen's voice cackled in the background. He'd put her on speakerphone. "The baseboards still need wiping. I haven't done my inspection." Something white-hot and final flared inside Emily. She squeezed the phone until her knuckles ached. "I am not your maid service. You have a son. Maybe he should move in and take care of you, because he won't be living with me anymore." Silence. Then Helen's shriek. "Jacob, did you hear that? She's throwing you out." What are you talking about?" Jacob's voice wavered. "Calm down." "I won't calm down. I am tired of being your live-in maid, tired of you treating me like staff, tired of your mother who thinks I owe her my life. On Monday, I am filing for divorce. You can't just..." She ended the call. The bus ride home was a blur of silent tears, but beneath the tears was a strange, almost forgotten sensation: relief. At home, she changed into soft clothes, sat on the sofa, and just stared out the window. An hour later, Jacob arrived. He was pale, flustered. Why would you do this? We're a family." "A family?" She looked at him, really looked. "Jacob, in the last 6 months, have you ever washed a single dish?" Silence. "Have you ever cooked a meal? Taken the trash out without being asked? Washed your own socks? Picked up after yourself?" More silence. "Now think, how many times have you thanked me for cooking, cleaning, doing laundry, for earning an income and contributing it to our life, for giving up my Saturdays to clean your mother's apartment?" Jacob sank onto the edge of the couch, his head in his hands. I thought this was just how it was supposed to be. That's exactly it. You thought. You grew up watching your mother carry the entire world while your father did nothing, and you decided that was the blueprint. But it's not a blueprint, Jacob. It's a prison. I didn't marry you to become your domestic staff. I didn't mean for it to be like this. But it is. And you know the worst part? You didn't even see it. To you, this was normal. Me working, me cleaning, me cooking, me doing laundry, me caring for your mother. All of it was just expected. My invisible job. He had no words. Emily could see his confusion, but her well of compassion for him had run dry. She'd spent it all, drop by drop, over months of silence. Emily, I'll change. I promise. I'll help. Jacob, I'm just tired. Do you understand? I don't have the energy for promises anymore. You said you'd help when we first moved in together. Nothing changed. You won't change. I will. Give me a chance. She looked at him. Maybe part of him meant it, but inside her there was only a hollowed-out quiet, exhaustion, disappointment. I'll think about it, she said softly, though they both knew it was an empty phrase. But right now, I need to be alone. Go to your mom's. She's waiting for you. He tried to protest, but seeing the finality in her eyes, he just nodded and left. The door clicked shut. Emily sat in the growing darkness. She stood eventually, walked to the window, and watched the city lights begin to sparkle. For the first time in many, many months, she felt like she could breathe, deeply, freely, without the heavy stone of resentment sitting on her chest. Maybe a divorce wasn't an ending. Maybe it was a door, the start of a life where she valued herself, where she was valued. And for now, there was quiet, and it was the most beautiful sound she'd heard in a very long time. You know, stories like Emily's really make you think about the unseen labor in relationships, the expectations we carry without ever questioning them. If this kind of deep dive into a story resonates with you, consider hitting that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow, and it means you won't miss what comes next. I'm also genuinely curious. What's your take? Have you ever had to reset expectations in a relationship, or seen a friend go through something similar? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a conversation. On Monday, she did go to a lawyer. She gathered her documents, filed the papers. Jacob called, texted, pleaded. Helen called, accused, demanded explanations. Emily blocked her number. 3 months later, it was finalized. The apartment remained hers. She'd bought it before the marriage. Jacob moved out, to his mother's. Now, Emily stands at her own window, coffee cup in hand, watching the sunrise paint the sky. Ahead of her is a life, her life, and she intends to live it exactly as she chooses. And her tea, she actually prefers it just a little less than boiling hot. All characters and events in this story are fictional.